The housewarming had 30 guests, a silk balloon arch, and a 3-tier vanilla cake. I stood near the patio doors, watching my sister Chloe accept compliments on her renovated kitchen. People praised the open concept, the quartz countertops, the way the light hit the new hardwood. My 7-year-old son Leo tugged my sleeve. He didn't raise his voice. He looked past the crowd and asked why the support beam in the sunroom had fresh drywall patches over cracked steel. The laughter stopped. Glasses paused halfway to lips. No one moved. The air grew heavy. No one breathed. 30 adults turned toward him. I didn't step forward. I felt the room shift, like a foundation settling under sudden weight. One sentence. 30 adults. The silence that followed cost them everything. I knew then that the quiet truth wasn't hiding at all. It was waiting for someone honest enough to point it out. My name is Elena. I am 36. I work as a municipal compliance inspector, checking whether buildings are actually safe or just painted to look that way. I became a mother at 29 and a divorced woman at 31. There was no courtroom scene, just a quiet kitchen conversation and a lease I signed alone. I raised Leo on night shifts and cold coffee. I passed my licensing exams while he slept on a folded blanket under my desk because daycare closed at 6 and audits ran past midnight. I learned to carry everything without complaining because complaining never fixed a cracked foundation. To my family, my life was stable but incomplete. A polite phrase meaning I was the draft they moved past. Chloe is 29. She is the correct daughter. She has a fiancé who remembers anniversaries, a kitchen renovated in 6 weeks, and a camera roll full of matching pillows and golden hour selfies. She posts milestones like clockwork. Engagement rings, cabinet handles, weekend trips. Every holiday dinner circles back to her blueprints while my son and I sit quietly at the table. I used to wonder if I was missing something. I looked at her staged rooms and felt a dull ache. They measured success in square footage and ring carats. I measured it in load paths and inspection stamps. Neither math canceled the other out. I just kept showing up. I kept filing reports. I kept believing that doing things right eventually builds something that holds. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday. Chloe's housewarming, Saturday at 4. The message included a note, "Come early to help set up. Leo can play in the sunroom." No mention of dinner. No RSVP for 2. I read it twice, then set my phone down. I didn't feel hurt. I felt familiar. That afternoon, driving past Chloe's street, I noticed a contractor's truck idling at the curb. White paint, faded logo, license plates from a neighboring county. Mismatched. I slowed, observed, kept driving. In my work, details like that matter. A truck from the wrong county means unregistered labor. Unregistered labor means unfiled permits. Unfiled permits mean risk. I didn't confront anyone. I didn't text Chloe. I filed the observation mentally, the way I file every anomaly, quietly, precisely, without assumption. But something shifted. A small crack in the surface of the story everyone accepted. I don't ignore anomalies. In my line of work, anomalies are just truths waiting for paperwork. I went home, helped Leo with his spelling, and folded laundry. The truck stayed in my thoughts. Not as anger. As data. And data, given time, always finds its way to the light. I just needed to wait for the right moment to let it speak. That evening, after Leo fell asleep, I opened my laptop and typed Chloe's address into the municipal permit portal. The screen loaded slowly, displaying a clean digital folder. I clicked through the property history and found the original build permits from 2 years ago. Then I searched for recent modifications. Nothing. I ran a secondary query for structural changes filed under the contractor's business license. 3 unapproved alterations appeared. Load-bearing wall removal. Sunroom expansion. Foundation reinforcement. The next morning, Chloe handed me her spare car keys to move a delivery van blocking her driveway. I reached into the passenger seat to adjust the mirror and felt paper crinkle beneath the floor mat. I pulled out a stack of invoices. The vendor names were generic, but the routing numbers told a different story. I recognized the pattern immediately. Every subcontractor listed traced back to the same holding entity. A Shell LLC registered in a neighboring state. Paperwork designed to blur ownership. I photographed the pages, returned them exactly where I found them, and closed the door. That afternoon, Leo sat at the kitchen table with a box of crayons. He slid a folded sheet of construction paper toward me. 2 houses sat side by side. The left one was tall, neatly colored, with a bright yellow sun overhead. The right one had a jagged black line running through its base. He tapped the cracked foundation with a stubby orange crayon. "The man in the blue truck told me we don't need permits for pretty things," he said. His voice was matter-of-fact. No accusation. Just a child repeating what he'd heard. My stomach tightened. I knelt beside him and traced the black line with my finger. The shock didn't come as panic. It arrived as clarity. Cold, sharp, and undeniable. I finally understood what I was looking at. This wasn't a renovation. It was a performance. And performances collapse when the weight shifts. I folded the drawing carefully and placed it in my work folder. Permits exist for a reason. So people don't build houses that look solid until the wind changes direction. I closed the laptop. I was ready. I sat at my desk and opened a new email. I typed Chloe's address. I attached the permit discrepancies, the LLC records, the invoice photos. I wrote 3 paragraphs. Clear, professional, stripped of accusation. I explained the code violations. I offered to help her file the corrections before the inspectors arrived. I hovered over the send button. The cursor blinked. I thought about her face. I thought about the housewarming, the guests, the way she'd framed her life as flawless. If I sent this now, it would become a defense. She'd call me jealous. She'd call me dramatic. The facts would drown in noise. I highlighted the text and pressed delete. The draft vanished. I closed the laptop. The anger didn't leave, it settled into discipline. I would attend the event. I would sit quietly. I would let the architecture speak for itself. Leo walked in holding his shoes. He asked if we were going. I looked at him and nodded. We go. We watch. We don't perform. Truth doesn't need an audience. But sometimes it needs a mirror. I packed a folder, not a weapon. I checked the time twice. I was completely ready to let the structure reveal itself. I arrived at 4:30, 2 hours before the first guest. The driveway was already full of rental equipment. I carried the folding chairs from the garage to the patio, aligning them in precise rows. Chloe directed me from the kitchen doorway. She wore a cream linen set that matched the balloon arch. She moved through the space like a curator, adjusting vases and straightening ribbons. I smoothed the table linens. I stacked the napkins. I worked in silence while she greeted early arrivals with rehearsed warmth. She praised the contractor's vision. She reminded everyone how a real family builds things properly. Guests nodded. They complimented the quartz counters. They admired the open floor plan. They quietly toasted her husband's foresight. I finished arranging the seating and slowly stepped back. Leo sat on a wooden bench near the hedge, watching the adults exchange polished compliments. He held a small paper cup of lemonade. His eyes tracked every gesture, every forced laugh, every carefully staged photo. I walked to the gift table and placed my contribution at the far edge. A hand-woven throw blanket in deep navy. 4 weeks of quiet evenings. I watched a guest glance at it, pause, then move toward the crystal barware. The blanket stayed exactly where I set it. I felt the familiar weight of being overlooked. But beneath it, a very steady calm took hold. I wasn't there to compete. I was there to verify. Silent. They celebrated the finish. I was still reading the framing. Leo slid off the bench and joined me. He didn't ask for attention. He simply stood beside me, solid and quiet, his small hand resting against my coat. We didn't need to perform. We only needed to wait. The structure was already speaking. I simply waited for the room to hear it. Chloe raised her champagne flute. The yard quieted. She thanked everyone for coming, praised the contractor's vision, and smiled at her fiancé. Then she looked directly at me. "At least my home was built right," she said. "With proper planning. Unlike some people who just improvise." A ripple of agreement moved through the crowd. Glasses lifted. Polite laughter followed. Leo stood up. He didn't shout. He didn't cry. He simply looked at his aunt and asked, "Why does your house have a cracked beam if it was built right?" The silence was immediate. Absolute. 30 faces turned toward him. Then toward Chloe. Then toward the sunroom window where a faint vertical seam ran through the fresh drywall. Chloe's smile didn't fall. It fractured. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. I walked to the gift table, opened my folder, and placed a single printed page beside the ignored blanket. The municipal violation notice. Clear. Official. Undeniable. Leo's question hung in the air, simple and unanswerable. Chloe stared at the paper. Her eyes moved from the document to her guests, to the house, back to me. No defense came. No rebuttal. Just the quiet collapse of a performance. Children don't lie about structures. They only repeat what adults try to hide. I placed my hand on Leo's shoulder. We didn't gloat. We didn't explain. We simply stood in the truth, letting the weight of it settle over the room. The toast was over. The real conversation was just beginning. And for the first time, I wasn't the one who had to start it. I didn't wait for an apology. I simply took Leo's hand, folded the navy blanket, and walked out through the side gate. The balloon arch swayed gently in the evening breeze. We drove home in comfortable silence. The next afternoon, my phone rang. It was Chloe. Her voice was hollow, stripped of its usual polish. She asked how to navigate the code corrections, how to file the proper amendments without losing the house. I listened. I didn't lecture. I gave her the direct line to a senior inspector, explained the amendment process, and wished her well. I hung up feeling neither triumphant nor bitter. Just steady. Some houses look perfect until you check the foundation. I'd rather live in a quiet truth than a loud illusion. Subscribe if you've ever been called incomplete for refusing to pretend.